but it has a Buddhist tradition that's even older than that.
Yeah, yeah.
That was supported by the monks and other people
Yeah,
before
Mon, Lawa, yeah.
in this area.
In this area, right? Suvarnabhumi area, right?
So living in a more traditional Buddhist country, of course, there are historical expectations, I suspect, from the monks and as for the lay people. And now that I have robes on, they mostly don't make a distinction between samanims and monks.
Yeah, and monks.
And so they treat me like a monk.
Yeah, because what? Because of what?
I think this because of the robe. And so under these conditions, it's very public. Where in the West, I was able to disappear in ordinary layman clothing, and no one actually knew that I was unusual at all. And I preferred the anonymity. If I went around in the United States in a robe, I'm sure it would be very surprising. And
it is.
it actually creates a kind of a responsibility that is now conscious, where before I could behave, let's say, quietly without being distracted by that recognition. And the recognition, as far as I can tell from myself, is a distraction.
I see.
My meditations are such that people ask essentially for blessings or appreciation. And my meditations actually don't include that as a value insofar as I would really actually recognize their suffering in a personal sense. And rather than it's like I'm being asked for a blessing.
Yeah.
My meditation would be, they would be asking for help for their suffering, which is a slightly different appreciation of the meditational practices. And in that responsibility that I now have as a public figure, recognizable public figure,
right.
I find that I feel very concerned about the suffering that these people are having and asking for solutions for.
That's a kind of the maybe Bodhisattva in Mahayana sense, but even in Theravada we have this idea through the Buddha we call the compassion, right? Yeah, a kind of this meditation is mean they always practice after the regular practice or regular technique of meditation has been practiced by the practitioner, and after that, as I mentioned, they quite appreciate practicing the compassion meditation, or we call it meditation, loving kindness meditation, something like that. But I'm not sure how much is different between that. As you mentioned, you have the beautiful mind to help people, and even you have this sense we call altruism, right? Altruism or altruistic, motive or mind is a kind of the one who gonna be the future of the Buddha. That's why in Mahayana, as you're familiar with that, about the people, they quite want, everyone can be the Buddha, descend, or even but in Theravada we don't think like that, but we appreciate this values or this virtues as well, such as the wisdom and compassion, which we believe the three virtues of the Buddha, which the purity, anattavan. And so meditation, I think, is in Theravada tradition, they quite not familiar with you, as you mentioned, they just only recite the mantra, right? For example, may I be happy, may I be free from suffering, and then they move on to the others or extend to the other sentient beings. For example, may all living beings be happy, and blah blah blah, whatever. This kind of practice is only a short time, but I think it's different from you, as you try to, I mean, apply into your daily practice or in your meditation application, which is very beautiful. And then when you have more and more this kind of altruistic motive, and then you will help others in the near future. Especially, I have heard you have many plans to do in the future, not just only compose your books or your manuscript. So I think it's for the next show we can talking about your future plan. Okay, so in this time, as you mentioned about the past or your experience about Buddhism from various traditions. Right now you are practicing a Theravada tradition in Theravada practice Buddhist country like Thailand. Could you please tell the difference between Thai Buddhist and the other Buddhists?
Well, at least I've only been here a couple of years,
Mm-hmm.
and I spent a year in Sri Lanka, which
Oh.
is a little bit different.
Yeah, I see. Even they practice the same Theravada, but
Yes.
different.
Well, you have traditions,
I
and then
see.
you have the teachings of the Buddha.
I see.
And the traditions modify or, let's say, emphasize different aspects of the Buddhist Dharma.
I see.
And that's, I think, very important.
Mm-hmm.
I know I've heard criticism about all the various schools, but my feeling is that the Buddha actually intended the diversity to actually be spread and encouraged,
Yeah.
because different people will hear
Mm-hmm.
the Buddha's message in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
And many times it takes a tradition to manage those perspectives,
Yeah.
such that the beginning person
Mm-hmm.
can better appreciate the differences.
Yeah.
So I rather value the differences in all the different Dharma techniques.
Mm.
As far as Thai Buddhism is concerned, it's, well, I'm going to use the word more basic or more fundamental
Oh, I see.
in its presentation.
Uh-huh.
I don't want it, the word simpler may be a right word, but it doesn't get the right character.
I see.
I think, for example, the Tibetan Mahayana is very complicated. I mean, it starts out complicated and gets really, really incomprehensible.
How is this complicated in your sense?
Well-
a loss of ritual, a loss of interpretation, or even a loss of symbolisms, or something like that.
All of that, and style also.
Style.
There's just a style within the Tibetan tradition that is just complicated. Now, when you speak to the lamas, and I certainly lived with them long enough, they're very simple, very happy people, as
Yeah.
as the Theravada monks are, or most of the monks, are really happy in their lifestyle choices.
Yes, I agree with that, because I have experience in India. The Tibetan, not Tibetan, but we call Bhutanese Lama. In my opinion, when I get close, at that time I got close to him and stay with him, I feel like they quite more, approachable and freer, or even simpler than us. They